Hello everyone. Today I would like to read out the 8th chapter titled The Woman in the King's Daughter from my manuscript, The King's Daughter and Him. This story is a work of fiction. All characters, events, and places are imaginary or symbolic in nature. Any resemblance to real person living or dead or real events is purely coincidental. This story is intended for entertainment, creative expression, and storytelling purposes only. Now, I'd like to read out the story. By around 5 in the evening, Rashika's friend was waiting outside her home. They drove through the city listening to soft music. It was a perfect setting for Rashika to listen to another chapter in the story of the king's daughter. Just then, his phone beeped. It's Nisha, he said. What do I tell her? Rashika smiled. Do what feels right to you. But if you ask me, I think honesty is the best option. If things work out between the two of you, you'll be sharing your life with Nisha, not with the king's daughter. But the decision is yours. You know I'm not very good at giving advices. He looked at the screen again. She wants to talk right now. What do I do? Call her back, Rashika said. Why are you feeling guilty? He nodded and dialed her number. Nisha, I'm a little busy right now. I'm on my way to meet someone. If it's urgent, can I call you tomorrow morning? A brief conversation followed. When the call ended, he looked relieved. Rashika observed him quietly. Something had already begun between Nisha and him. They were speaking regularly through messages and calls even before their first proper meeting. But another question lingered in her mind. Was the king's daughter so easily replaceable in his life? Or did she occupy a special place in his heart? Even after years of friendship, Rashika could not read his thoughts completely. But one thing was certain, he was eager to continue the story. The king's daughter lived a little away from the city, and the long drive gave him plenty of time to narrate. Rashika listened attentively. He began. At the end of the class that day, the king's assistant arranged a meal for me. While I was walking towards the dining area, the king's daughter asked the guards to lock her room and take the keys with them. She wanted some time alone. He paused. The guards obeyed without asking a single question. I remember wondering whether that beautiful face even knew how to smile. He continued. The dining table was filled with Indian food. Living in a foreign country, I had missed those familiar flavors. I enjoyed every bite. But something else stayed with me, the face of the king's daughter. I wanted to return, not just for food, not just for the palace. I wanted to see if I could make her smile. He smiled at the memory. And trust me, she doesn't just look pretty when she smiles, she looks like the most beautiful woman in the world. That night, he went to bed early. The next day, even while working, his thoughts kept returning to her. He found himself thinking about ways to make her smile. Meanwhile, his colleague and roommate was not very happy. The messenger who once helped him respond to rejected marriage proposals was no longer available. But none of that mattered. His thoughts remained occupied by the palace. The following evening, he arrived on time. The king's daughter was dressed in a beautiful traditional outfit from her homeland. As a writer, Rashika chose not to describe the details of her clothing, respecting her privacy. He spent the session observing her paintings and her expressions. Then he asked her a strange question. Have you ever stepped outside this room? She looked at him sternly. Stick to the subject. But he continued. Have you ever watched the first rain, smelled the earth afterward, seen butterflies up close, watched a rainbow appear in the sky? She seemed annoyed. What does that have to do with painting? He placed a drawing sheet beside her. Let's draw the same thing and find out. That day, they chose two subjects, mud and a butterfly. And when she saw his finished sketch, she immediately said, It's beautiful. Why can't I draw like that? He smiled. Because you're drawing what you see. I'm drawing what I feel. Then he explained. To him, art was not merely shapes and colors. Art was memory, experience, emotion, nature. He believed that unless she experienced the world beyond those walls, her painting would always remain incomplete. So he made a suggestion. Would you ever consider stepping outside? The guards can accompany us. The more you observe, the better your artwork will become. Her response came immediately. If my learning requires me to leave this room, then you can stop coming from tomorrow. The answer surprised him. Why was she so attracted to that room, or rather attached to that room? Was it comfort, fear, or duty? Or something deeper? He quickly softened his approach. If you ever wish to step outside, you may, otherwise, it can bring the world to you. Then he asked if he should bring a laptop or perhaps a small gift. She declined the gift. I have enough. But she agreed to the laptop provided it passed strict security checks. I'm fine with that, he replied. That evening, he left the palace feeling frustrated, not with her, but with whatever had transformed her into someone so distant. He wanted to be her friend, yet every attempt seemed to encounter an invisible wall. She was lonely. Of that, he was certain. But she was also someone who would never admit it. We spent hours in the same room, he said, and yet I don't think she had ever truly looked at me. Not at his face, not into his eyes, only at the drawings, the paintings, the work. Then he said something that made Rashika think. If you ask me whether I was in love with her, I don't know, he paused, but I definitely felt close to her. I wanted to see the woman behind the king's daughter. My friend fell silent for a moment. The story of the palace in that foreign land paused as our car reached the palace where the king's daughter now lived in our city. Before I knew it, we had arrived. After several security checks, we were finally allowed inside, and then I saw her, the king's daughter. She was dressed like an ordinary woman. She wore the same bindi we had chosen together at the shop. Simple, elegant, beautiful. As she walked towards us, my friend could not take her eyes off her. She looked at me and smiled. We've already met, she said softly, at the shop. I smiled back. I'm glad to meet you again. Then she turned towards him. For a brief moment, something changed. Was it the first time she had truly looked at him? I wasn't sure, but I noticed something. Her glance lingered, longer than it should have, long enough to say something words could not. And suddenly I wondered, had she dressed this way for him? He couldn't read the moment, but I could. Sometimes women notice things that men completely miss. Wanting to give them some space, I excused myself and moved towards a nearby collection of paintings. My friend looked at me nervously, almost asking me not to leave, but I smiled and walked away anyway. The king's daughter seemed to understand my intention. She smiled again, and this time I noticed something else. My friend didn't look away. He simply stood there, watching silent, as though he finally caught a glimpse of the woman hidden behind the king's daughter. For a moment, everything else disappeared: the paintings, the room, the security guards, the world itself. Only silence remained, and perhaps something neither of them yet understood. That's all for the day. Do let me know your thoughts about this story by writing in the comments section. Thanks for watching and thanks for your time.